Picture walking through a mist-covered forest at twilight, where every leaf seems to whisper secrets older than time itself, and the air tastes of moss and forgotten magic. Imagine the thin veil between our world and the realm of shadows growing thin, almost translucent, just as night begins to fall. In this liminal space, where light struggles to hold on, there exist stories that today's world has mostly forgotten, tales of beings both dazzling and terrifying, creatures who shaped the dreams and fears of ancient peoples. These are the tales of the Seelie and the Unseelie, feuding factions, locked in an eternal war beneath the boughs of fairy tale forests. But what were they really? And why did these enigmatic figures drift from folklore into mere whispers? What secrets did they guard? And what did their struggle reveal about the ancient human heart? This might be the strangest thing about the Seelie and Unseelie. Their nature defies easy categorization. They are not just fairies in the whimsical sense we might imagine today, fluttering about with mischievous grins and tiny wings. Rather, they are the embodiment of duality within fairy folklore. The Seelie, often depicted as benevolent but unpredictably mischievous, and the Unseelie, darker, more malevolent forces, embodying chaos and danger. Yet both groups are neither entirely good nor evil, two sides of a coin, spinning endlessly in the twilight between worlds. To fully grasp this, we must first step back into the cold, foggy hills of medieval Scotland and northern England, where much of this lore was born. Here, in the oral traditions compiled by folklorists such as Catharine Briggs and modern scholars like Michael Hunter, the Seelie and Unseelie courts are described as rival fairy factions, always at odds yet inseparably linked. The Seelie court, whose name roughly translates to happy or blessed, was known to aid humans, sometimes appearing to heal or guide travelers safely home. However, their help always came with a price, a lesson in humility or respect for the natural order. The Unseelie court, on the other hand, was feared as the harbinger of misfortune, tricksters and tormentors who delighted in driving people mad or causing accidents. Yet, as with any ancient tale, their story was not simply about good versus evil. It was about balance. In the oldie world, humans did not see themselves as masters over nature, but as participants in its grand dance, surrounded by spirits whose favor or wrath could change the course of a life. The Seelie and Unseelie were, in many ways, nature's version of security cameras, watching over humans' moral conduct, enforcing societal mores, and maintaining balance between the seen and unseen worlds. As one 12th century Scottish tale recounts, a weary traveler sheltered from a storm by a group of Seelie fairies soon realized that one small act of kindness, offering a humble gift, was the only reason the fairies spared him from the darker wrath of their Unseelie counterparts lurking just beyond the trees. These were not mere bedtime stories. They were lessons and warnings encoded in narrative form, serving as the original environmental activists and medieval social workers, guiding communities through the treacherous interplay of nature, superstition, and survival. But the Seelie court was more than just whimsical caretakers. Beneath their glittering exterior lay a relentless devotion to order and reciprocity. In folklore, the Seelie would often strike bargains with humans, helping with crops, healing illnesses, or providing insight into the future. But such favors always required respect in return. Neglect a fair warning or disrespect a fairy token, and their blessings could turn to curses as swiftly as a morning mist evaporates under the sun. These stories reveal something deeper about how ancient communities understood ethics and responsibility, particularly in precarious environments where the natural world was both provider and predator. Consider the emphasis on ritual and gift-giving. In many tales from 16th century Ireland, such as those documented by Lady Jane Wilde, the mother of Oscar Wilde, humans who crossed paths with Seelie fairies would leave offerings, shoes, ribbons, or bowls of milk to ensure safe passage. This was not merely superstition, but a form of ancient therapy sessions, a way for communities to express gratitude and acknowledge their place within the wider ecosystem. It was a symbolic dialogue between humans and the unknown, a bridge over which goodwill had to pass lest chaos reign. However, there was always the looming threat of the Unseelie court, the sinister flip side of the fairy coin. The word Unseelie means unhappy or unblessed, and their domain was one of shadow, unruly mischief, and darker intentions. The Unseelie fairies were the embodiment of everything that could go wrong. Malevolent forces who punished transgressions with a cruelty that was anything but whimsical. Where the Seelie might lead a lost child home, the Unseelie might lead them astray into eternal darkness. They were the reminder that nature had teeth and shadows, and that not all spirits cared for human well-being. Folklorists like Andrew Lang, who gathered fairy tales across Scotland and England, tell of these creatures as tricksters. Some stories featuring the Unseelie cursing priests or kidnapping maidens, others depicting them as shadowy figures in the woods that mocked and tormented those foolish enough to cross them. Their stories were not mere entertainment, but cautionary tales reinforcing the importance of respect for unseen forces. This should be no surprise, given the precariousness of medieval rural life, where misfortune was often attributed to the caprices of nature and spirits rather than mere chance. Yet there's more to this story than old ghost tales and witch warnings. The eternal war between Seelie and Unseelie also mirrors the human struggle to balance light and dark within ourselves. These fairies were ancient reflections of societal tensions, the contrast between order and chaos, kindness and cruelty, safety and danger, encoded in elaborate mythic form. They were nature's way of exploring duality before psychology was even a word. As the centuries unfolded and Christianity spread across the British Isles, these tales faded into the background. The church often viewed fairy beliefs as pagan superstition, attempting to suppress them in favor of doctrinal control. This cultural shift caused the rich tapestry of fairy folklore to unravel, transforming these beings from complex spirits into mere children's stories or caricatures of good and evil. The Seelie turned into harmless, gentle sprites. The Unseelie became bogeymen used to scare children. What these tales really reveal is not just the loss of belief in fairies, but the fading of a worldview that embraced mystery, respect for the natural world, and an acknowledgement of the unseen forces intertwined with daily life. Modern parallels abound. We have replaced these ancient beings with technologies and institutions. Surveillance cameras for the fairies' watchful eyes, legal systems for their moral guidance, and psychological counseling for their lessons on human behavior. Yet, unlike our cold, mechanical replacements, the Seelie and Unseelie were active participants in the weave of life, their presence a constant reminder that we once lived closer to mystery. They were also the original environmental activists, guardians ensuring the balance between human needs and nature's limits, a concept only now regaining prominence. Feel the dampness of the forest floor beneath your feet. Smell the faint but essential scent of wild herbs and damp earth. Hear the intermittent rustle of leaves as if a breeze moves unseen, or perhaps a spirit slipping through the branches. This sensory immersion harks back to a time when such details were vital. Signs, portents, and the language of the natural world communicated through invisible intermediaries. The Seelie and Unseelie were the interpreters between the human and the wild, the keepers of secret knowledge. The stories tell us something else, too. They show us how human societies used mythology as a way to understand and control the unpredictable forces around them. In a world without science as we know it, fairies were a form of explanation, a way to grapple with mental illness, bad luck, or natural disasters. The Unseelie, for instance, can be seen as personifications of those moments, when life felt chaotic and cruel beyond reason, a reflection, perhaps, of ancient minds wrestling with their fears. One particularly haunting Scottish folktale, captured by Catharine Briggs in her mid-20th century collections, tells of a farmer who, desperate through a harsh winter, was visited by a Seelie warrior disguised as a raven. The warrior warned of the Unseelie's increasing boldness that year, a portent of famine and strife. The farmer, after showing kindness and respect, was oddly granted protection for his crops, but only as long as he upheld the sacred rules. Never take more than you need, and always leave an offering by the old oak tree. His community saw this story as a metaphor for living harmoniously with nature's cycles and the unseen powers that governed them. But what about the Unseelie's war? Folklorists have long wondered whether this eternal conflict represents something beyond mere fairy politics. Could it be an allegory for the internal battle of the human soul, the struggle between light and shadow in the psyche? Especially in Celtic traditions, where dualities often symbolize complementary forces rather than absolute opposition, the tale of Seelie versus Unseelie invites us to see ourselves in this cosmic dance. It's a reminder that within each of us lies both the capacity for kindness and cruelty, guidance and trickery, protection and harm. As night falls fully and the mists thicken, the line between reality and myth blurs. These are not just stories of fairies and feuds, but echoes of a lost worldview. A call back to times when magic was woven into the fabric of existence, and humanity's place in the universe was less elevated but more intimately connected. The eternal war of Seelie and Unseelie is, in a way, our eternal war, with the unknown, with ourselves, and with the natural forces that have always shaped our fate. Stay with me, because this is only the beginning of the journey. The stories we've touched on are just the first threads of a tapestry that stretches back millennia and spans cultures and continents. Next, we will dive deeper into the astonishing tales of encounters with these courts, explore the rituals and taboos that governed human-fairy relations, and unpack the striking parallels these old stories share with our modern myths and fears. Because the war is not over, it rages on in the shadows around us, in the stories we tell ourselves, and perhaps, just perhaps, in the flicker of a winged shadow glimpsed beneath the moonlit canopy. As the moon climbs higher, casting pale silver light through the knotted branches, let us return to the heart of this eternal war, the clash not merely of beings, but of worlds, the luminous halls of the Seelie and the shadow-haunted domains of the Unseelie. It is here, in the subtle dance of flickering gloom and steadfast glow, that we come to understand the weight of these courts' existence and their chilling influence on the human soul. In the oldie world, such stories were vivid reality, not just parables told by firelight. Tonight, you will hear one of the most haunting and complete tales that unfolds the truth of their conflict, recorded by Catharine Briggs herself from the highlands of 17th century Scotland. Imagine a village nestled at the feet of a rugged hill, drenched in ancient forest, the kind of wild wood where shadows grow teeth and whispers crawl like ivy on stone. One restless night, a young woman named Eilie vanished without a trace, leaving only a silken ribbon clasped in her hand. Desperate, her father sought the wisdom of the elders, who warned that the Unseelie court had claimed her. The villagers had long known that with the coming of the dark moon, the Unseelie would stretch their talons beyond their realm, seeking to steal into the mortal world. Eilie's father, a man marked by grief and stubborn hope, decided he would not bury his daughter in silence. Guided by an old charm and silver he'd wrought himself, he ventured alone into the forest under the cloak of stars. After hours that seemed to fold time like parchment, he arrived at a clearing where the air shimmered unnaturally cold, and faint, ethereal music wove through the trees. Here, a host of the Seelie court were gathered, radiant figures with eyes like topaz and wings that sparkled with dew, locked in eternal struggle against shadowy shapes that flickered like smoke. The Unseelie. Speak your name and purpose, mortal, intoned a Seelie warrior radiating a light that held the chill of untouched snow. My daughter has been taken, he pleaded. I beg for her return. The warrior's gaze flickered, torn between allegiance and pity. The Unseelie do not give back what they claim willingly. But there is one path for a price. What happened next, as the story goes, was a test of courage, humility, and sacrifice, the hallmarks of every human-fairy exchange in these ancient tales. The father was offered a deal. If he could endure 3 trials in the shadow realm without succumbing to despair or anger, his daughter would be returned. However, failure meant eternal loss, his soul forever tethered to the dark woods. With trembling heart, he accepted. Each trial plunged deeper into the Unseelie's chaotic world, a place where time twisted like a serpent, where mirrors showed not reflections but fears, and whispers promised peace while hiding venomous lies. Yet through unwavering love and a steady acknowledgement of the unseen force's laws, never breaking a promise, never showing fear, he triumphed. At dawn, Eilie was returned, pale but alive, carrying no memory of her journey but a faint scent of nightshade on her skin. The villagers rejoiced, but they never forgot the price paid. Respect for the balance, for the thin line where light and shadow meet. This tale, preserved by folklorists like Briggs and retold through generations, is not just a ghost story. It reveals how humans navigated the liminal spaces of existence, the perilous dance between hope and despair, order and chaos. It is a testament to the resilience that the Seelie and Unseelie both demand and inspire. but the Seelie were more than noble rescuers. Beneath the glimmering veneer lay a ruthless commitment to cosmic equilibrium. As medieval social workers and nature's administrators, they enforced laws not written in books but etched into the earth itself. Laws humans were meant to honor lest imbalance invite calamity. Such tales often carried specific warnings. Do not steal from the fairy ring, do not mock a fairy's gift, never speak ill of the unseen host. Breaking these rules risked more than misfortune. It threatened the delicate weave of the world. One bright lesson comes from 16th century Irish folklore collected by Lady Wilda, where a proud farmer ignored the Seelie's humble request for a gift, just a bowl of milk left by the well. In return, his cattle became sickly, crops failed, and his barn was set ablaze by unseen flames. Desperate, he sought forgiveness through offerings and dances beneath the full moon, restoring favor and prosperity. These stories, this ancient therapy session of gift and atonement, conveyed respect as a sacred currency far more binding than gold. They were reminders that nature's bounty was not entitlement but blessing, a contract with the living world. Yet beneath this benevolent order lay the conflict's darker half, the Unseelie court, where chaos flourished and cruelty held sway. Their domain was the unruly, the punishing, the angry spirits lurking beyond the veil. They were nature's fierce correction when humanity overstepped or grew arrogant, its shadows that revealed the price of forgotten humility. Tales from England's medieval forests, recorded by Andrew Lang and later Michael Hunter, often depict them as merciless tricksters, wielding madness, illness, and despair as weapons against those who scorned the old ways. These malevolent beings were the original embodiments of psychological turmoil, mental illness, misfortune, inexplicable tragedy, all projected as external forces but deeply intertwined with human fear and guilt. Unseelie mischief was not random cruelty, but the dark reflection of social anxieties and personal failings, a communal acknowledgement that some storms cannot be weathered without consequence. As Hunter notes, the Unseelie were not monsters without cause but spectral judges, reflecting the shadow self we all harbor. Such duality of gift and curse, light and shadow, is integral to Celtic and broader European cosmologies. The Seelie and Unseelie were less foes locked in a simple feud and more reflections of a cosmic balance. This mirrors the yin and yang, the cyclic tensions that sustain life. When Seelie order faltered, Unseelie chaos surged. Yet without the dark, the light lost meaning. This eternal war, then, is less battle and more dance, a ceaseless negotiation between forces that shaped not only the fairy realm but the human condition. As Christianity swept the British Isles, these potent myths were reframed, diluted, or censored. Folklore became folklore no more, confined to gossip or nursery tales. The complex spiritual ecology they represented, interactions between human and fairy, the sacredness of the natural world, the vital necessity of respect, was lost to dogma and skepticism. The Seelie became mere sprites blessing children with empty magic, the Unseelie, wild boogeymen lurking in the mind's dark corners. What these changes obscured was a worldview deeply attuned to mystery and reverence. Yet in our modern age, the echoes of the Seelie and Unseelie linger in surprising ways. Our society has replaced them with institutions and technologies. Cameras watch like the ever-vigilant fairy hosts. Laws and courts arbitrate morality. Therapists unravel the mind's shadows. These systemic forces serve to maintain order and manage chaos. But unlike their ancient counterparts, they lack enchantment and personal presence. The original environmental activists, arbiters of balance, have become faceless algorithms and bureaucracies. There is a profound sensory element lost here. Picture again the smell of wet earth, the rustling leaves as if a hidden being stirs nearby, the cool weight of twilight pressing in. Not just scenery but signals, a language spoken by the forest itself. The Seelie and Unseelie were interpreters of this language, the keepers of primal wisdom connecting humanity to the unseen forces that shape fate. Relearning to listen to these signs means reconnecting with a primal form of knowledge, something science alone cannot fully recapture. The duality embodied in these courts also challenges us to face our own inner war. We carry within us Seelie traits, compassion, generosity, order, and Unseelie traits, fear, anger, disruption. Recognizing and reconciling these aspects within ourselves may be the most vital lesson these myths offer today. They urge us to embrace complexity rather than simplistic moral dichotomies, to find harmony in tension rather than elusive perfection. So what have we truly lost? A relationship with mystery, with the natural world animated by spirit and intent. A humble acceptance of our place in a vast interwoven cosmos. A recognition that actions have unseen consequences, both nurturing and destructive. The eternal war continues, not only in the shadowed forests of old but within our modern souls and societies. The fairy courts serve as mirrors, reflecting the ancient wisdom that balance is fragile and sacred. The final invitation this story extends is one to pause and remember, perhaps to walk outdoors at dusk, feel the moss underfoot, and listen for the whispers carried by the wind. To tell these stories again, not as myths to be scoffed at, but as threads of ancestral knowledge woven deep into human identity. To honor the Seelie and Unseelie is to honor the luminous and shadowed parts of ourselves and the world. It is to keep alive a dialogue with mystery in a world that often forgets how to wonder. May this tale rekindle that forgotten spark, urging you to carry these stories forward, preserving them as sacred gifts for generations yet to come. For in their eternal war lies a timeless truth, that light and dark, kindness and cruelty, order and chaos exist forever entwined, shaping the destiny of all who walk beneath the ancient trees, in the realm where worlds touch and magic still lingers.